House of the Dragon Episode 2 Ending Explained. Set a mere 6 months after the events of Episode 1, where we saw the Queen die during childbirth, and Daemon banished from King's Landing, we saw hostilities growing throughout Westeros at the idea of there being a woman that was heir to the throne, whilst the current line was also weak. With multiple things to learn from this episode, I thought I'd recap, break down, and explain all that there was to take away from it. So let's get into it. Here is House of the Dragon Episode 2 Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The episode started off by us seeing events that would later be shown at the end of Episode 2. The Stepstones were currently being dominated by the Crabfeeder, who was feeding Westerosi savers to the crabs of the land. It looked like a torturous way to go. Slow, painful, and the individuals were alive for the majority of the time that they were slowly being eaten alive. This showed the mindset and lack of remorse and morals that the Crabfeeder held. Despite not truly being introduced to him, this was an introduction into the type of character that he's going to be, and the danger and threat to King Viserys. We heard that Lord Velaryon had been wanting to send in troops into the Stepstones in order to deal with the situation, but the king was against the idea of war unless it was needed. Following the introductory scene, we saw the council meeting where it became apparent that the people of Westeros and the rival houses were viewing the crown as being relatively weak. This was due to the fact that the king's wife had been gone for 6 months, his daughter Rhaenyra was the only heir to the throne, and because she was a woman, this was something that many people didn't agree with. As we saw Princess Rhaenys, the queen who never was, state, men would rather take a torch to the realm than see a woman ascend the Iron Throne, showing that if she were to become queen, the chance to be overthrown would look to be considerably large, due to many people not favouring her being the heir and the leader of Westeros, despite them all swearing to be faithful to her. This led the king to take on Lord Velaryon's advice and meet with him and the king's cousin to discuss a way in which they could strengthen the line to the throne. This was by the king wedding Lord Velaryon's daughter, Rhaenyra. It made sense that Lord Velaryon spoke of this in the sense that they are the two great surviving Velaryon houses and would show Westeros the strength that it held by uniting the two families. However, Rhaenyra was extremely young and you could sense that 1. The king was not in favour of remarrying due to the fact that he was still mourning his wife, but he understood that it was his duty to, and 2. He was aware of how young she was, and you could see that he didn't feel comfortable doing that, especially after meeting with her and seeing that she was merely only stating things that her father told her to say. This was where we saw Otto Hightower's plan that he laid the foundations for in the first episode of the show coming into fruition and falling into place. Alicent, his daughter, had spent the last 6 months comforting King Viserys and being the shoulder to cry on and the aid he needed in his time of need. You could sense the comfort that the king felt from her, and the understanding that if he needed to wed, then he would want it to be her. She's slightly older than Rhaenyra, and he felt a genuine connection to her, due to the closeness that had been formed in the past few months. This was something Otto had planned for as soon as the tragedy occurred in Episode 1. Just like Lord Velaryon wants to combine the names and have a direct line to the throne, it's exactly what Otto wants. But he wasn't direct about it and let it play out more naturally, despite the fact that it was devised. I also think with the disease that the king currently holds looking like it's developing and getting worse, he may also be thinking in the interest of time it would be quicker for him to wed Alicent, and for a baby to then be potentially born. In this scene, we saw that Alicent had lots of blood and scratches around her nails and on her fingers. I don't know whether this is a nervous or stress thing that she's doing as she's around the king and she knows what she needs to do to please her father, or if it's because she doesn't want to betray her dear friend Princess Rhaenyra and she's taking it out on herself. But I think this is something that we'll see get developed over the course of the next few episodes. We saw in the closing moments of the episode that the king had now in fact made up his mind on who he wanted to marry, and this was in fact Alicent. This upset 2 people specifically, Lord Velaryon and also the king's daughter Rhaenyra. They both felt betrayed from both sides. Rhaenyra specifically in the sense that Alicent was her best friend and somebody who she trusted dearly, and she didn't know that this was going to be something that was ever on the cards. And the idea of strengthening the line, so to speak, and providing another heir to the throne if she were to give birth to a son, would be something that would take the power away from Rhaenyra, despite the king promising not to. We know how much Rhaenyra wants to be the ruler of Westeros one day, as we saw her looking to prove herself to her father in multiple different ways. Speaking up during council, but more specifically when Daemon summoned the king to go and meet at Dragonstone. We saw Rhaenyra go without the blessing of the crown and speak with her uncle. She was successful in stopping the conflict without bloodshed, to which her father was proud. but if a male heir were to be present, I believe he would still take it away, in the sense that it could potentially prevent a large-scale war with other houses, as they'd want a male heir to the throne. But this in turn will likely cause internal conflict, which I think we're going to see. We also saw Lord Velaryon leave the council and meet with Dameon, showing that he'd well and truly switched sides from the king. As mentioned earlier, they addressed that the Crabfeeder was potentially the first line of order that needed to be dealt with. The Crabfeeder was there by powerful entities within the Free Cities who wished to see Westeros weakened. The shipping links that the Crabfeeder is occupying have the potential to make the Velaryon house fall, and despite the king refusing to send in the navy to stop the Crabfeeder, it looks as though both Lord Velaryon and Daemon are going to take matters into their own hand, go against the crown and take on the title of the Rogue Prince, which is what the title of the episode was. This will be the start of the Civil War, or at least the first attributed act that leads to it. This will be Daemon's chance to prove to the people that doubt his worth that he's able to step up and deal with situations like the Crabfeeder, even if it means going against the king's orders. I thought episode 2 was really good. It was engaging, allowed us to see the repercussions of episode 1, and we really felt the weight and threat that was out there from the ongoing doubters of the king's current reign, and also from his own brother and other certain people. Whilst the Crabfeeder is gaining ground in parts of the kingdom, Otto Hightower is infiltrating from within, and it looks as though his master plan has very well been successful, whilst also driving a stronger wedge between the family even more. Rhaenyra's yearn to be a leader is apparent, and I believe she'll make Alicent and Otto pay for going behind the family's back and devising a plan to sit upon the throne. It may not be now, but with the assistance of Daemon, who I believe Rhaenyra will turn to, as they'll probably share a similar mindset and view of the crown, they'll seek revenge and aim to take back what's rightfully theirs. I'm looking forward to seeing more of the Crabfeeder as well as the episodes go on, as he looks like a really interesting, haunting character that will stop at nothing to get what he wants, even if that means inflicting the most torturous amounts of pain on an individual. So, there you have it, House of the Dragon Episode 2 Ending Explained. If you want to see more videos on House of the Dragon, such as endings explained, theories and predictions, and character breakdowns, then click on the I button, or alternatively you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. If you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Twitter, @BrainPilot_, and tweet me what show or movie you'd like me to review. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What did you think of episode 2? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.